just crammed my blinking dolls and seam-split stuffed animals into a box in the attic. I drank throughout high school, but not every weekend, not even every other weekend. It was the promise of drinking that sustained me through all of high school's afflictions, the PSATs and the SATs, report cards and driving tests, and presidential fitness exams. In high school, I sought out booze the way boys my age sought out sex. At parties, I leered when girls unzipped their backpacks, hoping to catch the glint of a bottle. And my own sly glances reminded me of the boys who leered when the girls bent forward, hoping to glimpse their breasts through the necks of their blouses. The brief encounters fed me. For weeks I'd relive swilling rum in a graffitied bathroom stall during a battle of the bands, vodka in the wooded perimeters outside of a football game, tequila at a sleepover after somebody's mom fitted a nightlight into the wall and announced she was going to bed. I drank through college, too, with an appetite that had me drinking rum by the half-liter bottle, until I couldn't squelch the impulse to unload my secrets to strangers, or sob, or pass out wherever I happened to be standing. I drank until I'd forgotten how much I had already drank, and then I drank more. For 4 years, I drank aimlessly when I might have been doing things that were far more gratifying. I might have been forming real friendships, the kind that would have stretched into adulthood and had me in ill-fitting bridesmaid dresses at half a dozen best friends' weddings. I might have been writing stories or taking pictures. I might have been sleeping a full 6 hours a night, or eating 3 square meals a day, or taking multivitamins. I might have been learning the language of affection, how to exchange glances or trace a man's fingertips with mine. I might have been reading the top 100 books of all time. I drank after college. I drank through my first real move, my first job as an executive assistant, my first insurance forms, my first tax filing, and my first apartment where rent was due on the first of the month. I drank after the real world revealed itself to me like a magic trick, after I saw the method of adulthood, the morning commutes and mindless jobs, which shattered the illusions I had about it. And at age 23, I gave up drinking altogether, once I realized how much it had cost me. Still, I am not an alcoholic. As far as I can tell, I have no family history of alcoholism. I am not physically addicted to drinking, and I don't have the genetically based reaction to alcohol that addiction counselors call a disease. In the 9 years that I drank, I never hid bottles or drank alone, and I never spent a night in a holding cell awaiting DUI charges. Today, 1 glass of wine would not propel me into the type of bender where I'd wind up drinking whole bottles. While I have been to AA meetings, I don't go to them. I am a girl who abused alcohol, meaning I drank for the explicit purpose of getting drunk, getting brave, or medicating my moods. In college, that abuse often took the form of binge drinking, which for women means drinking 4 or more drinks in a row, at least once during a span of 2 weeks. But frequently, before college and during it, more time would pass between rounds, and 2 or 3 drinks could get me wholly obliterated. I wrote this book knowing that my alcohol abuse, though dangerous, was not unprecedented, nor were the after effects I experienced as a result of it. Mine are ordinary experiences among girls and young women in both the United States and abroad, and I believe that very commonness makes them noteworthy. In the past decade alone, girls have closed the gender gap in terms of drinking. I wrote this book because girls are drinking as much and as early as boys for the first time in history, because there has been a 3-fold increase in the number of women who get drunk at least 10 times a month, and because a 2001 study showed 40% of college girls binge drink. When you factor in increased rates of depression, suicide, alcohol poisoning, and sexual assault, plus emerging research that suggests women who drink have greater chances of liver disease, reproductive disorders, and brain abnormalities, the consequences of alcohol abuse are far heavier for girls than boys. I also wrote this book because I wanted to quash the misconceptions about girls and drinking. that girls who abuse alcohol are either masculine, sloppy, sexually available, or all of the above, that girls are drinking more and more often in an effort to compete with men, and that alcohol abuse is a life stage behavior, a youthful excess that is not as damaging as other drugs. You can find girls who abuse alcohol anywhere. We are everywhere. Of the girls I've known over the past 9 years, the ones who took shots, did cake stands, toppled downstairs, passed out on sidewalks, and got sick in the back seat of cabs, there have been overachievers, athletes, dropouts, artists, snobs, nerds, runway models, plain Janes, and so-called free thinkers. Some wore oversized sweaters and lacerated jeans. More wore ballet flats and rippling skirts and fine spun jewelry that glimmered. Even holding a pint of the headiest beer, they retain the qualities that people call feminine. Girls don't drink in the name of women's liberation, for the sake of proving we can go drink for drink with the boys. We don't drink to affirm we are sassy or self-confident, which news weeklies have lately suggested. Nor is our drinking a manifestation of girl power or gender freedom or any of the other phrases so many sociologists interchange with happiness. On the contrary, most every girl I've known drank as an expression of her unhappiness. I drank in no small part because I felt shamed, self-conscious, and small. To me, it is no surprise that underage drinking has spiked, given the fact that so much of it is dismissed as experimentation or life-stage behavior. Parents tend to brand alcohol abuse as the lesser evil, as a phase that is far less actionable than drug abuse. As a drinking girl, especially a college-aged girl, I assigned happy hours and the subsequent hangovers to behavior that was expected of those my age. I believed the people who romanticized those years, the ones who told me to embrace irresponsibility before I was slapped with the burdens of corporate adulthood. For many girls, alcohol abuse may be a stage that tapers off after the quarter-life mark. Many will be spared arrests, accidents, alcoholism, overdoses, and sexual assaults. A whole lot of them will have close calls, incidents they will recount with self-mocking at dinner parties some 15 years later. Some of them will have darker stories, memories or half-memories or full-out blackouts that they will store in the farthest corners of their mental histories and never disclose to their families or lovers. But I fear that women, even those women who escape the physical consequences of drinking, won't escape the emotional ones. I fear some sliver of panic, sadness, or self-loathing will always stay with us. I have always loved Rainer Maria Rilke's poem, The Grown-Up, which speaks of a girl who stands bravely before the world's fear and grace. We are assured she endured it all, bore up under the swift as flight, the fleeting, the far gone, the inconceivably vast, the still to learn, serenely as a woman carrying water moves with a full jug. I could recite that poem in my sleep, and yet I recognize that I have never been that girl. Instead of shouldering adulthood with all my young courage and strength, I dropped it after the first impossible hoist, when it all felt too unmanageable. I wrote life off as heavy cargo, and accepted it could only be mastered by masterful men. I was a coward. I grasped on to alcohol, which was the first available escape. 9 years after I took my first drink, it occurs to me that I haven't grown up. I am missing so much of the equipment that adults should have, like the ability to sustain eye contact without flinching or letting my gaze roll slantwise to the floor. At this point in time, I should be able to hear my own unwavering voice rise in public without feeling my heart flutter like it's trying to take flight. I should be able to locate a point of conversation with the people I deeply long to know as my friends, like my memoirist neighbor, or the woman in my reading group who carries the same tattered paperbacks that I do and wears the same footless tights. I should be able to stop self-censoring and smile when I feel like it. I should recognize happiness when I feel it expand in my gut. Some of the most interesting research findings in substance abuse involve women who began drinking regularly